Yeah, AI, I mean, it's interesting. About a year ago, I didn't think I'd have to have AI incorporated in the platform. Now I don't think I could do it without AI. I mean, it's remarkable in terms of bringing the data in easily from third-party media companies, updating all the buy-side campaign requirements and constraints, and also yield optimizing for the sellers. What we're doing is very granular for the sellers. We're creating almost a rate card for direct response where they can raise and lower their price floors depending on where they see the demand. That doesn't exist in the direct response area. It's always just been hey, someone bids a unit rate, you throw it in there, that's all you know, and then you work for the next day's, log closure. It's pretty, unfortunately, it's been kind of mindless because the sellers don't have this performance data.
Welcome back to Founders in the Field, the show where we go behind the scenes with agency leaders, consultants, and creative founders to show you how they're building, scaling, and staying sane in the trenches. I'm your host, Stefan Bradley, and today's guest is Long Ellis, founder and CEO of Denali TV. How you doing, Long?
Good, thanks. Nice to be here.
Appreciate you coming on. Let's dive straight into question one. For people who don't know your story, take us right back to the start of your journey, what made you start your own business, and give us an overview of what your role looks like today at Denali TV.
Sure. Well, I've been in the TV space for a long time, linear TV, and at a certain point it was getting kind of boring for me, and I decided, the right path was really looking at making everything more efficient, working on workflows, improving the efficacy of buying and selling. And I went to Google TV ads and got involved in trying to get Google into the TV business with automation and data. And since then, I've been with a lot of companies that have tried to optimize television. I finally had an idea, and I'm primarily focused on the remnant aspects of linear TV and automating that portion of TV. What became interesting for me is that probably 50% of the revenue in linear TV, in terms of national cable broadcast and local TV, comes from sort of a weekly, almost a daily sales process. It used to be back in the early 2000s, maybe 5-10% of the revenue. Now it's 50%. So the linear TV networks are depending a lot on performance-based advertisers who buy on a cost per outcome basis. They're not necessarily buying audiences. And that process hasn't been changed in 60 plus years. And so it seems like a really good place to focus. No one is focused on this. Most of the VC money and all the high growth companies are focused on connected TV. We have a connected TV application, but the big opportunity really is in linear TV, where there's been very little innovation and really they're not optimizing. And lastly, I've always been frustrated by what I call kind of the evolution of TV as you know it today in terms of B2B buying and selling. It's been controlled by SSPs, DSPs, optimizing against the other side. There's no optimization capability that helps both sides simultaneously, and that's what Denali TV is. And I feel really strongly about it. You see a lot of articles on LinkedIn these days in terms of lack of transparency and the problems evolving from really the buy side focusing on getting the lowest rates and the sell side trying to get the highest rates. And how do you integrate the two and create this kind of win-win? Well, that's exactly what Denali's doing in the performance area of linear TV.
So before you did Denali TV, you were experimenting, working in workflows and automations, and you've seen sort of a gap really in the market of where linear TV could exploit that gap basically with automation and how AI come into it, and that prompted you to create your own business. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. And what I observed is it's really an archaic system where the buy side in this space has all the first party data, all the performance data, and they know really almost in some cases to the quarter hour of what programs are performing the best within these broad day part rotations. Linear TV has historically been sold on a day part basis, so daytime could be 6A to 3P, so 9 hours of programming. But the system right now is the sellers don't have that performance data. They're blindly throwing these ads into these broad rotations, really in kind of a waterfall, highest rate to second highest to third highest, and so on. But they don't have access to this performance data. And if they did, they could find a win-win in terms of placing the ads where they would perform the highest, and that's where the advertisers would pay a higher rate. And so what we're doing at Denali is fixing this. We're kind of a neutral, privacy-safe platform stuck right in the middle. We ingest first-party data. We ingest from the sell side available inventory, and we batch optimize the demand against the supply in a way that creates this win-win. So we can drive higher rates for TV publishers and much higher performance for performance advertisers, as well as lower cost per outcomes, all in the same optimization, which is pretty unique.
Yeah, no, definitely is unique, and it's like a total change for how normal TV has been run, or advertising in TV was run before. As you mentioned, I think you said the word archaic, and having just daytime and nighttime, and it's sort of, there's no rhyme or reason to where you're going to end up, and you can tell that's obviously how you spotted an automation part of it as well, being like, this is sort of done so like routinely, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? To be able to automate that part, but also being able to take out the data and give the buyer and the seller, or the seller, I think you said, to actually have the data to be able to know where's best to actually place the ad.
Yeah, and one thing to note, we don't share that performance data with the sell side. So it stays in a privacy compliant way with us. And so we're actually leveraging that data to help the sellers. And then we're leveraging the amount of inventory and the mix of the inventory on the sell side for the buyers, so we can create this win-win. It's very similar to, if you know anything about data-driven linear, which is going on in a grander form. It's really targeting programs within these broad rotations that have a higher concentration of the target audience. And that's great. We're doing this for performance advertisers. So we're targeting the programs within these broad rotations that are going to perform the highest. And in performance, you can actually pay a higher rate and get better outcomes as a buyer, as an advertiser. With a CPM audience-driven DDL process, a higher CPM is never good for the advertiser. It's just a higher cost, less efficient. You can actually, in performance, pay a higher rate and get dramatically higher performance and lower cost per outcomes. And that's sort of the magic of what we're taking advantage of.
Definitely key word you said there, efficiently. That's where I think AI can step in with lots of, including your platform, Denali TV, but AI as a broader topic as well. It's just improving that efficiency can dramatically move the needle.
Yeah, AI, it's interesting. About a year ago, I didn't think I'd have to have AI incorporated in the platform. Now I don't think I could do it without AI. It's remarkable in terms of bringing the data in easily from third-party media companies, updating all the buy-side campaign requirements and constraints, and also yield optimizing for the sellers. What we're doing is very granular for the sellers. We're creating almost a rate card for direct response, where they can raise and lower their price floors depending on where they see the demand. That doesn't exist in the direct response area. It's always just been hey, someone bids a unit rate, you throw it in there, that's all you know, and then you work for the next day's log closure. It's pretty, unfortunately, it's been kind of mindless because the sellers don't have this performance data. They have performance data kind of on a directional basis, because based on where the demand is wanting to advertise, right? So an advertiser really likes, let's say MTV's daytime, day part. Great. So the seller knows that it must be performing well. But within that day part, that broad day part rotation, there are specific programs that are going to perform probably, in some cases 3-4 times higher than the average. So we're taking advantage of that. So we're breaking out these large day parts into specific show targeting, program targeting. And if you know anything about advertising, it's not just targeting audiences, it's targeting content that actually contextually works with the ad. And that's kind of where the magic happens. There are a lot of companies that are really measuring this. But it's absolutely true that some ads in terms of performance will do better in certain genres of programming, certain times of day, different types of programming within the same genre. And so what we're targeting towards is really the programs that specifically drive the most sales, drive the most website visitations, and other programs within those rotations, maybe underperform. So it's new to this line of this area of the business. And agencies forever have not had the ability of placing these ads where they can perform the highest. So they're just playing this kind of, rolling the dice on hoping that their ads land in the appropriate programs over time. But what we're doing is always optimizing for performance, because if you optimize for performance, it helps both sides.
No, definitely. Like you say, it's like hit and hope type of thing. And for where we are in the world now, it's quite mad that that's happening. Obviously not on Denali TV, but without that is sort of still happening. People just kind of rolling the dice, as you said.
Yeah.
What does your role actually look like today on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, right now I'm really socializing the capability. I've been in the TV business for a long time, so I have a lot of relationships with the TV publishers and with the agencies. And we're testing right now. We've got some major TV publishers, TV network families, TV station groups testing the platform, and we have a handful of agencies that are testing on the buy side. So we're ingesting data, running the data and the optimization through our Gen 1 platform and showing the outcomes. And the outcomes have been fabulous. This works exceedingly well, and both sides are happy. So my role really is now to take it to the next level. The platform works, the whole approach works. There are a lot of things in the marketplace that are slowing things down, like consolidation. There are huge mergers happening. But what's interesting for me is the agency side is really starting to develop AI capabilities, and a lot of the media planning is going to probably be generated by AI, maybe exclusively at some point. But what we're doing dovetails really nicely with some of these agencies, in that we can create APIs and bring in that updated media planning data, the campaign requirements and constraints on a daily basis, and then basically update that data so we can re-optimize the campaigns every 24 hours, which in this business, agencies can only re-optimize every couple weeks, or maybe they do it once a month. We can actually set this up so dollar allocations can move from one network to the next on a daily basis. Pricing, is dynamic, and so the AI is going to drive basically the price adjustments on a daily basis, and fully reviewing the performance to that date. So it's really fun to think about the capabilities, and then yield optimization again is phenomenal using AI. A lot of the traffic systems in linear TV, they've done fabulous work up to date, up to this day, but they don't leverage performance data. So again, they're just optimizing yield based on these rates that are being offered. And, again, we can increase these rates by at least 30%, which at scale is a huge number. I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars, certainly hundreds of millions of dollars that the TV publishers are leaving on the table by kind of this blind optimization.
Your answer there kind of leads me on to my next question, which was about trends that you're seeing in the market. But you kind of you just reeled off a few trends that AI is definitely shaking up the TV industry, and if it doesn't, then people are leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, no, the thing that's made this incredibly hot is certainly AI. The other kind of tipping point in the marketplace is consolidation. And for example, Paramount buying Warner Brothers Discovery, that's a situation where now this structure is going to go from, make it up, 15 linear networks to 30. It's doubling in size. I don't know the exact numbers. But when you get something that large and now you're trying to buy across all these TV networks and you're trying to sell across all these TV networks and optimize on both sides, now you need some automation. Now you need some really smart ways of doing it. And, the whole formula, unfortunately, for a lot of people working in the TV industry is, consolidation means, you're doubling your revenue by taking over another company, basically, but you also need to cut costs. It's all about margins, right? And so automation and AI is going to come into play for sure. The other tipping point is the agency side, getting really sophisticated in terms of audience and attribution modeling, really understanding, what programs are performing the best, being really sophisticated in that area. And the more sophistication on the data side, it makes Denali work even better. So that's really good. The last, not necessarily the last, but another kind of tipping point here is interoperability. There are plenty of companies over the years that have tried to create some kind of automation for linear TV, and they've been unsuccessful because they're probably too early in the market, and the TV networks weren't feeling the pain that they feel today. Now it's like, hey, give me some automation, give me some capabilities that can streamline my process, but also make me more money. And so that's really something that's evolving, in that if you're picking a technology, you want something that can be interoperable across all agencies, right? And agencies don't want to use 20 different types of optimization and platforms, right? It complicates things. So Denali was designed to be that kind of center hub to be able to optimize on both sides and be a SaaS self-serve platform in the cloud that both sides can use. And another interesting aspect of what we're doing is we're free for the agencies and advertisers. A lot of this, sort of digital natives created all this technology for TV, but it really evolved initially from DSPs. There was way too much supply in buying display. And so how do you buy across 30,000 different websites? Well, you can't. So you needed automation. And then a lot of these digital natives said, well, we can just do that for TV. Why not? TV is way more nuanced than that. And you can't do it. And there's a graveyard of probably, 35, 40 companies that have tried to do it. But now is the time. And performance is an area that is much easier to optimize and automate than audience-based general marketplace CPM deals that, every deal is different. It's way too nuanced. It's really difficult. And I think, there's always going to be a major human element in selling that. With Denali, yeah, there's absolutely a human element, but it takes away the grind of a lot of the grunt work and things that don't need to happen. And also, it benefits both sides, so you can be really strategic. One thing that is absolutely necessary in the marketplace today is in terms of automation, workflow, and optimization, is the ability of not just buying one TV network, but buying multiple TV networks simultaneously. So we're designed so an agency can put in an overall budget and use a drop down, and if they're looking at, let's say, Versant, or they're looking at Paramount, or they're looking at Disney, they can bring a drop down of all the networks they want to buy, and then one budget and one massive set of campaign constraints and requirements can be used, and the optimization will always find the highest performing available hour of programming across 10 different networks simultaneously. So there's no better way to optimize for performance and efficiencies. And that's something that's really going to help the agencies perform and also maximize performance. In today's world, again, it's kind of like rolling the dice on whether it's going to perform or not, because you're relying on the TV networks to allocate the ads in some fashion, but they have no idea where to put these, where they could basically drive higher rates. So yeah, being able to, and I hate the word programmatic because it's been butchered over the years. It's meant a lot of different things, but it's a good way of describing kind of what Denali does in terms of being able to buy across multiple TV networks within the same network family simultaneously. And if you think about linear TV inventory, every day it's a different mix of shows. It just depends on the sellout that day, right? Because the general marketplace dictates what's left in terms of the remnant avails. And so our technology finds the highest performing available spots. So it always goes to the highest available performing hours of programming. And humans can't do that. They don't have really any view into what the inventory is. There's a complete lack of transparency on that side, which we keep, but we know what's available. That's the beauty of Denali. We sit in the middle. We're Switzerland, and we don't share any of the information in terms of how many avails are there or what the mix is. And then we bring in the buy-side data from the agencies / advertisers, the performance data, their key KPIs, and we don't share that with the sellers. So, and that way we can kind of fix this problem that has been going on for 60 plus years that, no one's tried to solve. When I present what we're doing to people, it's fascinating because a lot of them go, wow, why hasn't anyone done this before? It's kind of a digital approach to linear TV, but I think the reason is this area of TV, because it didn't represent that much revenue back in the day, 5-10% at most. They were, people who sold this were kind of the stepchildren of national TV sales, right? If you're a national TV salesperson, you don't want to be selling direct response. It's a whole different deal. You want to be out selling the big programs and, the sponsorships and dealing with all the agencies and clients. And direct response was always this sort of last minute fire drill, to sell your remnant inventory. Now that it represents, in a lot of cases, 50% of the revenue, now the performance sales folks are beating their chests. Now they're like no longer the stepchildren. They're responsible for a lot of this money. And also, if you put a 30% increase on that money, that adds up. In a world where the TV publishers are struggling to get any kind of a revenue increase, it's really unfortunately going the other direction. If you think about the audience migration from linear TV to connected TV, it's leveling out. It's not as extreme, but it still has reduced ratings. I don't know the exact number, but I want to say over the last 10 years, it may be like 15% a year. And so those general marketplace CPM audience-based deals in linear TV, in a lot of cases, can't compete with the rates that performance advertisers are willing to pay. And that's why you see this massive encroachment of performance coming in and going from 5-10% to 50%. It's just rate driven, but we can drive even higher rates. So the status quo has been reached, and then we can kind of boost the performance for both sides and create a whole new level, which I'm super excited about.
Well, the thing is, obviously, with direct response, as long as you've got the data, which you have, do you mean you can actually put a number on it and articulate that, how well that's doing and how much revenue that's actually bringing in? Whereas when you're doing other types of ads, not direct response, it's probably a lot harder to actually obtain what effect that ad has actually had. And from what you've said, you said it's sort of new way of looking at linear TV in more like a digital way, but you're actually utilizing the data and then using machine learning AI, to actually ingest that data and give out better, performance updates and where you're going to place that ad for the most optimization, like the best best version, the best sort of outcome that you're going to get is if you do X, Y, and Z, and you're using data, and that's the critical part, is the data. And I'm guessing performance ads is what gives you that data.
Yeah, it's interesting. Denali doesn't. We don't attempt to be a data company. We don't do any data modeling. We don't care about getting into the attribution area. We don't do media planning. We do nothing that's competitive with agencies. That's the point. We don't want to compete with agencies. We just want to be additive. And so everything the agencies are doing on their side is amazing in terms of really following the performance, again, this whole track, and updating your goals on a daily basis based on performance. And so the agencies have gotten really good. I'm working with one agency right now that has, an incredible AI platform that they're using for attribution modeling, for updating their media plans, and that goes into their own BI system. In a lot of cases, agencies are using MediaOcean and Core. That kind of houses a lot of this data. Whoever it is, whether it's direct with an agency or whether it's MediaOcean or Core or even Strata, we can create an API and bring that data in. And so that whole feedback loop that's measuring performance on a daily basis, we can enter into that loop and ultimately take the updated data and then place it. And so we can adjust our placements depending on how often the data gets adjusted. If an agency and advertiser doesn't update their data for a month, fine. But audiences migrate pretty quickly sometimes. And so if you're chasing audiences and you're chasing performance, and you've saturated a certain TV network day part, and you're not getting very good responses anymore, you got to move that money to another TV network, another day part that is performing, where it's fresh, and you haven't kind of saturated the people who, are going to buy it or respond to whatever the offering is. So you got to keep moving the money around, and that's part of the automation that we've developed, is being able to really, if you want to, you can, re-optimize every day, or you don't have to, and, you don't necessarily do things every day, because differences in performance from day to day can be due to a lot of different things, right? You probably want to look at a trend. But, some things like program changes, which happen all the time, being able to re-optimize on a daily basis and adjust to program changes where, one program that was performing really well is no longer in the day part, was moved somewhere else. Now you can make adjustments, and you're not lagging behind that audience migration. You're on it, very quickly, which ultimately means the advertisers are going to perform way better, and there's not going to be as much waste. And that's something, when you think about waste, what we're doing is just absolutely reducing the waste, because in today's legacy process, make it up, half the time ads are running in underperforming hours of programming. And so we get rid of that. We jettison the underperforming hours. We only focus on the highest performing hours until the budget is used up. So it's a much more secure and stable way of doing it. And it provides, I think, the buy side with a ton more confidence that they're able to achieve what they're trying to achieve, as opposed to, again, not having control over these ad placements.
No, and a system is only as good as the data that's being fed to it. And the more you can, the more you're not necessarily every day, but the more you can actually update it with good data, or even data that's telling you something, you're always going to stay up to date. And that's true with not just Denali or advertising systems, all sort of AI systems. The more you can have a continuous sort of a feedback loop to be able to, because it'll retrain itself on that data, and when things do change, as everybody knows.
Yeah, I mean, it's early stages with AI, but I think AI is really getting adopted pretty quickly. And certainly the holding companies are seeing the advantage of using AI, particularly, a couple of these holding companies are consolidating where, again, the whole formula, they've got to rely on automation as opposed to, doubling the size, and, therefore their profit margins stay the same. There's no point in doing it. But it's a fascinating area, and it's fun. I mean, I will tell you one of the challenges. It's new, it's innovative. There hasn't been much innovation in this area. That's also the challenge. Is you've got people who have been doing things the same way for
Forever.
their entire careers, and so all of a sudden you show up and you go, hey, overnight I literally can increase your performance by 50% at least, and they're like, wow, I can't do that, but that's interesting.
Definitely.
And everyone is a little skittish of, well, what does that mean, in terms of what I do, and how does that affect my, my role? But it's like anything. What I would argue is, Denali wasn't developed to do anything but just increase performance. And thankfully, I think people can get rid of the drudgery of some of the things they're doing and step back more, and then realize that a lot of this automation makes sense, and they can be much more strategic at a higher level and do things. And it's all about driving more business. I mean, the agencies that start using Denali first, if you think about it, are going to outperform the industry. And so it's going to be really, really interesting to see the dynamic of that, because now agencies that increase the performance and lower the cost per outcomes for their clients are going to drive more business. They can create a white paper and attract, they can steal, accounts. It's going to be like, are you using Denali or are you not? And I love that, because we're free to agencies. Like, we're not adding any cost to advertisers or agencies, and we're also not trying to overlap with anything they do. We're really just focusing on the last step of what they do, which is placing the ads. And purposely, I didn't want to disintermediate agencies. Never have. It hasn't gone well for a lot of DSPs I won't mention, who all of a sudden are sick of the agencies and they go to all the clients and try to, do it that way. And it never pays off. And agencies, I think it's a lot more interesting actually dealing with agencies, because they have multiple accounts across multiple areas, industry categories, and that's where you can get volume, right? If it works for one client, it's going to work for all the clients, and it does. So you can scale a platform a lot better by going through agencies. A lot of these DSPs that are in the performance area are literally, because they go direct to clients mostly, not agencies. It's one campaign at a time trying to scale, and that takes a long, long time. But part of what we're offering is not just this optimization capability; it's creating a workflow for the industry to make it a lot more effective, efficient, the exchange of information. One thing I haven't addressed really, and I know I'm doing a lot of talking, but right now, a lot of this information is coming to the networks through a PDF from MediaOcean Core. Not the privacy, the data that can't be shared, but kind of campaign requirements. And those PDFs are being hand keyed into traffic systems on the sell side. I mean, it's really kind of crazy archaic. And the TV networks can only update that information as fast as they can hand key everything in again. And what we're doing is we're ingesting that data, so it's automatically on the Denali platform. There's no PDF that's needed. The optimization leverages all that updated data, and in terms of workflow, it's going to be a lot easier.
So it's native to the platform, and I can definitely see that why they would be interested in that, and it's something new as well. Like you said, everything before that was all PDF, so being able to have it native in your platform is definitely a reason why one of the good reasons why people will want to use Denali, as well as amongst all the other things. But let's switch gears a little bit now, and I want to ask you, what is working well, and where do you feel slight friction at Denali TV?
Yeah. I think I alluded to it earlier. I think where the friction is anything that's new, innovative in a market that hasn't changed in a long time is it's going to take a while to socialize. I've been in the market for a couple of years now, and we're making a lot of headway. It's never a case where you have one meeting with someone and they go, "Hey, this is amazing, let's do it." I have gotten a few responses like that, but for the most part, it's a second or third meeting where people really get their head around how it affects their workflow, how it affects, their workforce, what their overall goals are, and integration points too. I think, the challenge, not that we can't do it, but the challenge is getting the TV networks to understand kind of what the sequence is and where our optimization fits in with theirs. They're doing their own optimization. And on the broader marketplace, CPM deals, they've got their own way of maximizing yield, but they don't have a way of, like we're doing, of using the performance data to maximize the yield of the performance area. And, I argue that, we're really not competitive with their optimization, because ultimately what we're doing is producing rates, optimized rates for the TV networks to look at and either traffic them or not. They can schedule these things or not. It's all preemptible. That's the beauty of of remnant television. It's 100% preemptible. So if a TV network has audience issues and clients are screaming about audience deficiency units and make goods, and at the last minute they can take their remnant and throw it towards advertisers who buy on an audience guarantee basis, or a movie company comes in and is paying 150% a rate card because they got to get on the air for a TV boost, or rather a movie boost. So it's very flexible, and we're just really the last step. But whatever optimization the TV networks have, we're just another sales channel. We're just another set of unit rates that they can decide to run or not. And, I would guess they're going to run them, because if they're at least 30-40% higher than that advertiser was paying last week, why wouldn't you? So I think, some of the friction is more just socializing the idea and then having people really work through the process. And then on the buy side, there are plenty of agencies that see the attraction of the efficiencies that we produce, and I had one agency say, well, I can do this. The person I was talking to, I can do this myself, but I've got a whole younger staff of people who we're just bringing on because we're scaling our business, and oh my God, this would be perfect for them, because they don't know the nuances and the tricks of the trade and whatnot. So I think every entity that I work with is looking at this in a different way. It just depends on, their manpower, what their strategy is. But integration points, I think ultimately are going to be easy, because once you're selling something that is this valuable in terms of driving much higher revenues and lowering the overall cost per outcomes and raising the performance for the buy side, people are easily going to find a way to, and find the time to integrate with us, because it's going to benefit them greatly.
It's market maturity as well, isn't it? When AI is new, and being able to articulate that you're here to work with them, not work against them. But it's being able to articulate that in a way that they're going to hear it, because with new things, shiny toy syndrome and all these types of things, will think that they can either do it themselves, and they will maybe not see the collaboration part of it. But that once you can articulate that, and the industry has matured into realizing that it's needed, and the collaboration of different systems is needed, like what you said, then I feel like you're going to have much better.
You're exactly right. It's interesting. I don't want to optimize against people. I don't want to put people, push them against the wall, put it, back to the wall. I've been a TV salesperson, TV sales management for my entire career before I got into really ad tech. And I hate the idea of DSPs optimizing against the TV publishers. I've always tried to find a methodology that will help both sides, and I have. And part of that is, I've been managing, TV networks over the years. And, if the TV publishers are going to continue to produce really high quality programming and content, they need money to do it. It's not inexpensive. Netflix had a ton of debt because they were in a hurry to start producing some really high quality content. And they had to take loans to do it. It's super expensive. And so if you're trying to, over time commoditize premium content and TV, there's going to be no content left. What's the end game? Like big companies like, let's say, the Trade Desk over time has just been trying to drive volume and fees. I think now they're understanding that that's maybe a weakness, and that they're trying to work with the sales side now. For years I've been trying to argue that you need to try to find a solution that helps both sides, and it's going to benefit both sides in the long run. I mean, better content is going to help advertisers reach the people they're trying to reach. No one wants to consume lousy cheap content. There was a time when reality was so big, mainly because, it would do a high rating, but also it was super cheap to produce. And so TV networks like MTV went, almost like 100% reality, until, people are sick of that and they want to go back to scripted, dramas or whatever it might be. But I think I love selling what I'm selling because I can go to anyone and talk about the positives. There's nothing, I don't have to dodge. I never, there's no angle here in terms of trying to hurt buyers or sellers. And the great thing about performance is that if you raise performance, it raises all boats. It helps both buyers and sellers. Buyers are able to pay more, and also perform way better, and increase their efficiencies. So we've created this kind of sweet spot, and that's unusual. People sometimes they don't tell me, but I bet they're kind of wondering, is that really true? Or is there a trick going on here?
It's definitely a high leverage point that you're at, being in between both and not working against any of these. One good USP as well.
Yeah. And from the TV publisher side, on the digital front, the original game was just hook up to as many DSPs as possible, get as many sales channels going as possible, because that will maximize the demand and the pressure against your inventory. But that adds a lot of complexity too. And I think back to kind of the interoperability and having one place where you can go, where all the demand is focused and the agencies are used to working, and it's integrated with Mediaocean and Core and the third-party data companies that a lot of these agencies work through. It's going to simplify the workflow. It's going to help both sides. That's my vision, really. Get rid of a lot of the unnecessary companies in the middle that are just kind of sucking the media dollars out. You think about connected TV and the fact that, I don't know what it is, 65% of the money goes towards actual media and 35% goes towards fees, whether it's data fees or SSP fees or DSP fees or what. And then 20% of that 65% doesn't work because it's bots, it's not real audiences.
So Long, would you mind walking me through your client acquisition process? Like, how does Denali actually get clients?
We're in basically test mode. So we have clients who are testing, and it's really just me. I mean, I have a whole team of people, advisory team that's working for me. I've outsourced the development. We've raised money. So I've done all the things that basically I need to do. It really is kind of taking baby steps and proving out the methodology, which has already been proved out, just throwing tons of data through our Gen 1 platform. But now what we really want to do is work with the big players and prove it to them. And I think, again, back to kind of these inflection points, which always help startups. You can have a great idea, but if you look back in history, there have been inflection points in the marketplace that have helped startups, randomly. Like you can't predict these things, but I think the couple of inflection points that are important is really the consolidation of the linear TV market in terms of the TV publishers all coming together, a lot of them, and also AI capabilities and the data capabilities that are evolving from the buy side in terms of data attribution. So it's really just test and create white papers, and I think once we get through that stage, then some of these big guys are going to want to have the platform, and that's why I'm currently now raising funds to build the second generation platform.
So Long, my last couple of questions are, where do you want to be in terms of business in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, in the perfect world, in 12 to 18 months, we would have signed, probably at least 2 big TV publishers. I think that's entirely possible. And once you have that kind of volume on the supply side, and we have socialized this with a ton of agencies to date, I think if you build it, they will come, because the agencies are going to want to buy through Denali, particularly if we can increase the performance and lower the costs. And so we'll really start generating, we're not trying to boil the ocean. We're not trying to take over 100% of this market. We don't need to. I think in the early days when I've been pitching this, it's not like this is a light switch into some black box that you don't understand, and then you have to commit to. It may be a trickle initially, one campaign at a time, through every agency until it's proven. But we know it works, and we've tested enough to know that it works. And so I think it's once it gets socialized and understood, it's going to scale pretty quickly, particularly when there's no cost to the buy side and we have premium inventory on the sell side. So that's really my goal. I'm excited about it, and I'm having really good conversations. People really now understand what the capability can do. And there's no devious part of this. It's really just trying to help both sides. So then the TV business is interesting. One TV network goes out and does something really innovative, and if it works, all the rest kind of fall in. I've seen that happen, 9 times out of 10. If it works for one, it's going to work for any of them. So that's what I'm hoping, that we get a good amount of supply, and we really become, a hub, if you will, for optimizing this area of TV. And I think, down the road, it's only going to get bigger. As the audiences continue to migrate to connected TV, performance rates are going to, be very competitive with national CPM type deals. And so if it's 50% right now, the revenue, it could be 60% in a couple more years. And so weirdly, it's a growing area within kind of a declining medium. And linear TV is not going to go away anytime soon. I mean, if you listen to the pundits, it's going to be around for another 20, 25 years in some capacity. So it's not like we're building something that's going to be, useless in a couple of years. I think the big area that's going to be developed, well, it's being developed right now, but I think it's convergent performance. It's really taking one budget and being able to spread it across connected and linear TV simultaneously, always looking for the highest performing available programs. And our approach to connected TV is interesting in that, in essence, we're able to curate the list of the best shows in connected TV that advertisers should use in terms of performance. I mean, once they run ads, then they track the performance. And in digital, it's a lot easier than it is in linear. So we'll be able to curate those specific shows within these streaming properties, and then create what we've created on the linear side is really a win-win. So we can price it out such that it works really well for the buy side and the advertisers, and represents a CPM increase for the sellers. So it's exciting. We're focused on linear right now because it's a more immediate opportunity, but ultimately it can be a convergent capability, which is what advertisers want. They want to be, performance is performance, whether it's a connected TV screen or a linear TV screen, it's a TV. and so when they're measuring outcomes, sales or website visitations or responses, whatever it is, it's the same kind of measurement. It's, you're driving incremental sales one way or the other. So it's a much easier way of creating a convergent buying capability than it is kind of on the audience CPM side, I think.
Definitely exciting times, 100%. So Long, my last question is, if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in your business, what would it be?
I think it would be being able to convince people that this is where the marketplace is going, everyone overnight. We have enough people right now to test it, and we have really high quality publishers and agencies. So that's not an immediate need, but it's frustrating when you've got something so innovative and works so well, not to be able to scale it immediately. But that's the nature of the beast. It's on me really to socialize the capability and convince people, and it's hard to get meetings. The nuances of this area, it's kind of like a fire drill every day. They're selling remnant inventory, which needs to be done every single day, and it needs to be bought every single day. And so the nature of the beast is it's hard to get people's time, but we're making progress, and that magic wand would enable us really to just scale this overnight. But I think you have to take a step back and realize anything that's mildly disruptive will take time, to adapt and be adopted in the marketplace. So, but don't need the wand, but I'd love it.
Yeah, not need a nice wand though. It is though, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd be a nice icing on the cake.
Long, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed our conversation and learning about Denali TV. Where can my viewers and listeners, if they're wanting to reach out to you to potentially work with you or to use Denali TV or any of that?
Yeah, no, just email me at long@denalitv.com. And we don't have a website. We're still kind of in stealth mode. We have a patent pending now, so we can basically protect the IP, but it's really been kind of a quiet sell to date. So you can just reach out to me at long@denalitv.com, and we can have a conversation, set something up.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing everything. And all my viewers and listeners, please like, comment, subscribe, send to a friend, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Long.
All right. Thank you.